Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we will be doing a playthrough, more of an AAR style playthrough, but a playthrough nonetheless, of the expansion for Old School Tactical Volume 4. This is called For the Empire, as you can see right here. This is the playbook for it. And so this adds the Canadians and New Zealanders to the British side, and it adds some Fallschirmjagers for the Germans as well. So we'll be seeing both of those in, well, we're not seeing the Canadians. I kind of wanted to do a Canadian scenario, but I felt like for this the purpose of this is largely not only to just show the expansion, but also to show armor. And so this is all armor on the New Zealand side. So the Kiwis are all armored up here. We've got 6 Shermans and 3 Stuarts and an armor leader. So we are going to see some armor action here. Now on the German side, you have some Fallschirmjagers. They have 2 leaders as well. They also have several hidden units, which when you're playing solitaire becomes a little bit of a challenge. So I also wanted to talk about how I personally house rule hidden units in the old school tactical system. Generally speaking, what I do is I use a die roll, because I'll look at the map from in this case the German perspective, because they have the hidden units, and I'll say, where would I put these if they weren't hidden, or even where would I put these if they were hidden. The trick is I can't hide them from myself. So for like this pack 40 here, I could say, well, the range is 22 and this is a flat. This battlefield is flat. There's no elevation. There are some walls and there are some buildings that are going to interfere with your line of sight. But I would look at the map and say, okay, maybe I would put it, say, here, right? Because then you pretty much have this arc here that you can fire into. And, we have a building here and there's some walls here, but these are tanks. So they're not going to necessarily try to hide behind houses and things like that, at least not in general. There's also a lot of them, so they can't all hide behind the building. And if they're hiding behind the building, they're not fighting. They're not coming up here to take my control hexes from the German perspective. So I say, okay, maybe I would put it here. Maybe I would put it, I don't know, here or further up the map as kind of a last line of defense to help make sure we hold those control hexes. That's the general line of thinking. So we have a pack 40. Now, I believe I mentioned this in the first look video, but if we look at the counter, you can see here in the corner is this red arrow, basically. It's like an arrowhead, kind of, I guess. You see what it is. It's red. So that is the facing, or basically where the gun is going to be pointed. So if the gun were, let's say, here, you would point it at a hex side, like so, and then its arc of fire would come out in a fan like this. So, and it has a range, as I said, of 22. This scenario starts in hex CC 14 and CC 27. That's 14 hexes total. So this gun can cover the entire battlefield no matter where I put it. Of course, as I mentioned, there are obstacles. So what I will do in terms of hidden units is, if the Germans win initiative, okay, I will keep them hidden. This gun is going to go into action pretty much right away. These half or reduced Fallschirmjäger squads will come into play a little later. They have shorter range. This one does not have any squad weapons. This one, however, has a bundle. So they can, if they can remain hidden literally until an allied unit gets up next to them, and then they would be revealed, at which point they would also be able to use their bundle to attack the tank in that case, right? Because they don't have the ability for anti-tank fire, not inherently, at least. That's why the other squads, we have 2 Panzer Shreks and 2 Panzer Fausts, and we have a Faust here, a Shrek here and here, and another Faust over here. So these are my main full strength units. We have our 2 leaders here. Note that Teller here has a range of 2, and so does Kelting. So again, looking at where the hidden units might end up, Maybe one is here because they can take advantage then of Teller's leadership ability, and the same here, or in one of these other cemeteries. This is cemetery, one of these other cemetery hexes, perhaps something along those lines. So what I'm going to do is I'll roll a die to determine where the hidden units are. And in the case of these Fallschirmjagers, which are paratroopers, if you don't know what those are, um, they're basically going to not be. I'm not going to probably won't be firing on them because his bundle has a range of 1. So they're going to hide basically until a tank is literally on top of them and then perhaps do something. This one is my backup plan for, say, someone here gets knocked out. There's a Panzerfaust laying around or a Panzerschreck. They can grab it and go into action that way. So they're going to be up here, most likely in one of the buildings. And again, once a unit gets close, I'm going to roll a die, and it'll be like a 50-50 chance that that's where that unit is. So it'll be, here or here or here. And then if none of those pass through, it would be like here and then up here, etc. And the same for the gun. I think the gun's primary position is probably right here because it's right in the middle and it can't be put inside. These are buildings, but they're ruined buildings. That's why they look a little beat up, because they don't have any roofs on them anymore. Or roofs, I guess I should say. Sorry, East Coast accent coming into play. But we have our buildings here. So they do provide the same kind of shelter to units as a building would. It's a +2 defense here for these two. And of course, they do block line of sight. So we're going to get started here in a moment, but I just wanted to kind of give a brief overview of what this is. And then as far as the special rules, there are some special rules. Here's the item about the ruins. And then you have the Fallschirmjäger are elite units. So theater rules, German offboard artillery accuracy was deadly accurate in Italy, as the soldiers had great observation of the battlefield. In most instances, all German accuracy rolls in this theater receive a +1 die roll modifier. In our scenario, the Germans will not have any artillery unless they get it in a luck card. Steady troops. Canadian and New Zealand units have a reputation for being calm under fire. Therefore, these units receive a +1 die roll modifier on all rally rolls. And then it just talks about that the scenario sheets don't specifically call units by their nationality, but it's implied. You can see here the differences. And again, I touched on this in the first look, but the little kiwi bird here would indicate that that is a New Zealand, and the little maple leaf will indicate that that is Canadian, as you might expect. So that is basically the gist of it. We're going to be playing, I guess it's scenario 4, Albanetta Farm. This is in Monte Cassino, so that was in, obviously a big battle in Italy, March 19th, 1944. You can see the two sides don't have a lot. We have a 6 gut check for the Germans and a 7 for New Zealand. It's an 8-turn scenario. I already showed you kind of the battlefield where it's laid out here. This is the southeast corner of the giant map. We have our 3 control hexes marked out. The New Zealanders get 1 artillery strike at the beginning of the scenario, so we'll do that. You'll see that as well. And then the German player sets up first. I've already done that. Control hexes are German. German units are elite. Foxholes placed with hidden units are also hidden. I placed a foxhole here and here, and those are not hidden because I didn't put hidden units in them. Wire may not be placed in control hexes. I put it here because we have a building here and a building here. So the tanks, since they can't go through buildings, they have a defended hex here. So we have a ruin, a defended hex, another ruin, wire, and another ruin with units in these that can help defend it, as well as these guys down here. So the ideal spot, I guess, from the New Zealand standpoint for attacking is probably up this way. But I'm going to have I'll have a 50-50 chance the gun is here, and if it's not here, it's going to be here. So it'll be one of these two, because that would cover the approach up this way. And then we also have a Panzerfaust over here as well. So that is the general setup. Muddy ground farms cost 2 movement points for foot units. These are farms here. These are also farms up here. So if this guy has to fall back, he'll either have to go this way or he'll have to pay 2 to go through the muddy farm land there. They also cost 3 movement points with a bog roll for tracked vehicles, so the tanks will have trouble with the farm areas as well. And bad roads, no road bonus for vehicles. Each road hex costs 1 movement point for vehicle movement. Normally that would cost a half a movement point, but with bad roads, it's a full movement point. Victory is whichever side owns the most control hexes at game end. There are 3, so we cannot have a tie. A draw is considered a German victory. I don't know how we get a draw, but with 3 control hexes, I'm pretty sure we're going to get a winner. So that is going to do it, and we're going to get started. Our impulse point roll will be 2d6 plus 2 for both sides, so we have a fairly even matchup in that regard. Obviously, the Germans have no armor, and the New Zealanders have nothing but armor. Off here on the left, we do have our tracks for the various things, victory points, which aren't used in this scenario, casualty points, and impulse points, of course, as well. And they have special impulse point counters or markers here for this expansion rather, for the game. So this took a lot longer than I thought it would. But I'm going to get turn 1 started by doing our rolls. I'm going to play the entirety of turn 1. Then we'll go to kind of an AR mode, or AAR mode rather, where I'll kind of explain what happened, take snapshots during the turn and explain what happened at the end, do a recap of the turn, move us along. When we get to critical points, I may play that out on video so you can see it. But the idea is to get all this done in probably 2 videos. So this initial one with turn 1, and then everything else will be in a separate video. And I might chunk out the individual turns on Twitter or something like that. So that's the plan. Now let me get this set up. First thing we'll do is roll for initiative. The white will be the New Zealanders. They got a 9. The Germans got a 6. So New Zealand has the initiative. Now we will roll for impulse points. 2d6 plus 2 for both sides. So the New Zealanders got 10. So that would be a 0 here. And the 10 marker is off to the side, just off shot. And the Germans got an 11. So they have 1, and they also are on the 10 mark. So the New Zealanders get to go first. So as I mentioned, they have a bunch of armor here. So the way I kind of set them up is I haven't decided yet if I'm going to split them out. I knocked my leader off here as well. They have 1 leader. That is Lieutenant Hawkins here, as you can see. Now, he is going to be probably on one of these Shermans. And he has a range of 3, so he can kind of cover, he can, if we group our tanks together, he can kind of cover a decent amount of them. I figure I might as well show you some the unit cards here real quick. So here's our Sherman 5. You can see its range goes out to 18 hexes, which again is going to cover the entire map. So nobody's out of reach to these Shermans. And there's their 2-hit number. And obviously it's that number or higher. So close range, it's 7. So you basically have a decent shot. 7 is the most common die roll result for 2d6. If you did not know that, I'm sure you probably do. And then we have our armor piercing firepower. You can see up close it's more penetrating power, as you would expect, and it gets a little weaker as you go out. The Stuart with its 37mm M6 gun is more of a pop gun. I mean, when we're talking about armor, that's a relatively light gun, of course, for this stage of the Second World War. Their range only goes out to 10. Their 2-hit numbers are 7 and 8, and their firepower is 3 and 2. Denotes that it's tracked, as did the Sherman, of course. The Martyr 3 and the Pumpkin, I had those in my hand accidentally. I wanted to talk about the Fallschirmjagers. So you can see their movement is 4, firepower 4, their range is 5, defense 5. They are elite. They get a +1 in melee and a +1 in rally. That's no different than what we saw with our commandos for the British in the previous videos. All right, let's get it going. So stacking limits for vehicles, I didn't mention that yet. It is 2. Basically, stacking limits in this game are 2 units, a leader, and support. In this instance, I might be tempted to bring my leader out and do a, this guy's sideways, do a group move, spend 2 points or whatever. But since I have the knowledge that this guy is hidden somewhere, I'm not going to do that because he's either here or he's either or there, right? That's my 50-50 that I'm going to do here. So what I shall do is we are going to send one of our Shermans up the road by itself using 1 impulse point. So we've got 1, and they should be facing their hex side that they're moving through. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now when we get here, we're going to check, because this is my little house rule, we're going to check to see if the New Zealanders are going to do opportunity fire from either here or here. So we'll say odds, the gun is here, even, it's here. It's odd. So the gun, we're going to again point its arrow in the direction it is facing, hex sidewise, not the vortex, the hex side. So he's pointing this way. He can see, he has line of sight to this hex. Now this also determines which armor will be used. We have here on our Sherman counter, the armor is this 5 and 4. 5 is front, 4 is rear. Basically it's determined by the vortex, right? So we're facing this hex side. So this vortex here and this one here will determine front and back. So this is front. It's going to hit it in the front because it's not going to cross this hex line right here. So it's going to hit it in the front, so it's frontal armor. So the first thing we have to do is determine what it needs to roll to hit it. Now, because it's a hidden unit, it gets an ambush bonus, and so we'll talk about that in a moment. But here are its, you can see its range. Now, it's got a purple firepower for when it's reduced, but it's obviously not right now. So it's got a crude weapon and a covered arc, and no fire after move. Now, the range is 5, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the range is 5, which gives them a to-hit number of 6. They get a bonus, a +1 DRM for the to-hit number and the attack because it's an ambush. So in reality, that to-hit number is really a 5, and their firepower is a 10. So we will roll to see if they hit, first of all. And they don't. They do not hit. That's a 3. They don't hit. So that is a big miss for them, and they will get marked as fired. Big, big miss there. They can continue their move. So they will go 5, 6, and turn their facing that way as they move. So they will get marked. Moved. Now, we have a Panzerfaust right here, or a Panzerschreck rather, and I just realized that because of these vineyards here, that's blocking terrain. So this is only going to be good for anybody that comes up in this approach. Now, the cemetery terrain is degrading. So if they go up this way, they'll have a shot through here. Or down this way, but they can't shoot through the vineyard because that is blocking terrain. So unfortunately for them, that is the case. Now, our Panzerschreck range, in case you're wondering, is a 3. So they're in range, but they don't have a shot. Now we have a Panzerfaust over here. Its range is a 2, so he's not even close to having a shot. Just in case you were wondering. So that moves them down to 9. impulse points, and I'll slide that off. Now it's the Germans' turn. Well, they have a second shot here if they want to use it, and they probably should. Now, this is the case where you use the acquired and acquiring. So you have the acquiring unit is this guy, and the acquired unit is this guy. So they can still get a +1 on the 2-hit roll because they've acquired the target by having fired at it once before. We know we get a +1, so we're going to roll again, and it's basically the same thing we just had. We need a 5 or better, and this time we got a 9. So they have, I'm going to just, well, I guess that's technically supposed to stay on until the end of the turn. So they've now hit it. Now, we know the firepower is a 10, and so here is our vehicle combat table. We know that the armor they're firing at is the frontal armor, which is a 5. So with a 5, from 10, you get the 5 column. Looking at the DRMs here, we don't have any, there's no degrading terrain or anything, so yeah, there's no DRMs on the shot. And they get a 7. Now a 7 in the 5 column is an X result, and if you look at this side, it tells you X means destroyed. So they have a kill. So this, I'm going to take the acquired and acquiring off because it's the tank itself is dead. So we're going to flip it to its wreck side. And these guys are used now. And so now we need to check to see if the crew has survived. So our New Zealand player would roll 1 die. If it's a 6, the crew survives. If it's not, they are dead. It is looking like a 1, and it's a 1. So the crew has been killed. That is 2 casualty points. And that is the end of their impulse. That cost the Germans their impulse points. So they're at 10. And we have a wreck here now. So we'll talk about what that means in game turns here in a little bit. Let's move another unit on. Now we know that they're used, so it's probably safe to take Hawkins and maybe a second Sherman and move them on. And we'll go, maybe they should try this route. So they'll try this route. So they're going to, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Butterfingers. We'll start here. So in clear terrain, look at our terrain chart here. So we have open, costs 1 for tracked. So that's open, open, open. Now once we get here, they're going to be in range of the Panzerschreck. So we know they're there because we have godlike visibility over the battlefield here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, the Germans only have 9 because I forgot about I didn't take the impulse point for their first fire, so they've used 2. The Brits have also now used 2. They'll be at 8 after this. Okay, so now at this point, we've got our Panzerschreck here. He does have visibility. He's within range, 1, 2, 3. His firepower is an 8, so that's pretty strong. It is not an ambush, so he doesn't get a bonus. So it's going to be an 8 against 5. Again, front armor. And he will attack the tank that has Hawkins in it, I guess. The command tank. So we know our 2-hit number for Panzerschreck. Let me pull that out so you can see its card. So here's our Panzerschreck. Range is 3. Our 2-hit number is a 9. And our firepower will be an 8, assuming we hit it. Now, this rule right here about when you're firing from a structure, you have to take a gut check. That's not in effect on this map because these buildings, due to the heavy fighting, these buildings are all destroyed. So there's no blowback. Okay, so, and they can use HE firepower against bunkers. So they're going to be firing here. They do have a leader, so that does also give them a bonus. With an attached leader, they get a +1 on their 2 hit. So their 2 hit number, as I said, is a 9. So what they really need is an 8 or better. Let's see what they get here. They got a 7, so they have missed. So they have now fired. And we'll put a marker on them to indicate as such. And we will also put the acquired, and we'll use C for this one, I guess. Why not? Oh, that's backwards. Acquiring there, acquired there. Now, because they did not take damage, they could continue to move. But in this case, I think we'll stop here. We're going to fire at them soon enough. So they're at 8. The Germans are also now at 8 because they, again, used opportunity fire. Now, because there was no damage, it remains the Germans' turn here after their opportunity fire. So, since they've already got the acquired here, they may as well take another shot at our tank here. So they will do so. They're going to shoot, so they get a +1 for their officer or leader. He's only a sergeant. And a +1 for the target being acquired. They'll get a DRM on the roll, but a 2 hit, they get a +1 because it's an acquired target. So they get an 11, so that's going to be a hit. And now we'll roll for damage. All right, so our to hit, or firepower number rather, is a 9. No, sorry, an 8. But they do get a +1 here for their leader. And they got a 6, which is only a 7, and so they did not make it. So they are now used. Turn that the right way. We'll keep that on there. All right, so they're used. They've used another impulse point. Now, as the British, let's try and get some more armor onto the board here. So let's take one of our Stuarts. They have a movement rating of 7. They will go 1, 2, 3, 4. Because the Panzer Faust range is only 2. And we don't want to get into this area anyway because we'll have to have a bog check. So we'll move here and stop. 1, 2, 3. They're out of range. And we'll put a moved on there. We'll go back to the Germans. And I don't really think they have much to do at the moment. Let's roll for cover for this. I guess they don't actually need it because they're in a building. They will pass, which is going to cost them an impulse point. But I don't want to move this guy, and he's out of range. And he's also out of range of the Panzerschreck up here because that range is 3. And they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away. So we go back to our Stuart here, and now he will fire at this unit right here. So he's going to be firing his machine gun. So as you can see on here, their HE firepower is a 2. Okay, so they will be attacking with that. Their chances here aren't great, right? Their firepower is a 2. The Fallschirmjagers here have a defense of 5, and the Foxhole gives them a +1, so they're at 6. So you do the math, that's a -4. That's not a great opportunity, but we're going to take it anyway because we can. Even though that will use these guys, we're going to take the shot anyway. We need basically a 9 for a shaken, a 10 for a broken, a 10 or 11 for a broken, and a 12 would be a casualty. And we got a 9, so they have to take a gut check now. Their gut check number is a 9. No, I'm sorry, a 7, and they pass it. So we mark our Stewart as used. And we move this down 1. They have 6 remaining, as do the Germans. I could do something incredibly stupid and move these guys out of there. But in this one, we do have the special rule about the farm, not the farm, yeah, the farmland being muddy. So it would actually be 2 movement points. But the range of the Panzerfaust is a 2. So let's do it. We're going to abandon our foxhole and we're going to move up 1. Okay, we could go further. In fact, maybe we'll go here. So this is risky because now it's going to go back to the New Zealanders here, and they can move up. They can move another tank up and take a shot at them, and they're no longer in their foxhole. So I'm giving up that extra 1, and we're going to put a moved on here. You know what? I've been forgetting to use the moving fire DRM as well. So I do need to make a mental note to not forget that. So that leaves them with 5. We go back to the New Zealanders. They will indeed take the opportunity here. 1, 2, 3. That's probably close enough. And they will put a moved on as well. But they will get to take a shot here at this Stewart, which does not have particularly thick armor. You can see here its front defense is only a 3 and its flank is a 2. This is a frontal shot because they are facing that way. So our Panzerschreck has a firepower of 9, and their front defense, as we already know, is a 3. So that leaves a 6. Now they will take a penalty, as I mentioned, from having moved. So that would be a -1 DRM. So their 2 hit number with our Panzerfaust at range 2, you can see the 2 hit is an 8 and their firepower is a 9. So moving fire, we're going to take a -1 on both the 2 hit roll and the firepower roll. So basically they need to roll a 9 or higher. And they rolled an 11. So that is a hit. And the firepower it's a 6. So we're going to be in this column right here, and we're going to have a -1 DRM. And that is an 8. So 8 here in the 6 column becomes a 7. So that is a casualty. Oh wait, that's the wrong. That's infantry. 8 is going to be even modded down to a 7. They're going to knock it out. So they're going to knock it out. So that actually worked out for them. The price will now be paid, though, because they are going to be subjected to fire from our Sherman right here. So that's a straight up shot. Let me move this down to 4. This is a straight up shot here. And their firepower with their machine gun is a 4. And their defense is a 5. So they also moved and will take a -1 for moving fire. So we do have, what, 4 minus 5 is -1. And they'll get a -1 on the die roll. So, whoops, this is played out just like infantry combat. So that's a 6. That's a good roll. And the other one is another 6. So this is going to be bad news for our paratroopers here. So as I said, it's a -1 column. So -1, 12 or higher, they basically, oh wait, -1 because of the moving fire DRM. So it's an 11, which is a casualty and a broken. So that we know they're going to take the casualty. Now we have to find out if they also are broken by rolling for a gut check. And again, their number is a 7. And they got a 7. So they're not broken, but they did take a casualty. So this guy is now done as well. They are down to 5. And we go back to the Germans, and so the Germans will pass because they don't really have, I don't really think they have much that they want to do. We'll go back to the British. Let's take our shot here, which will leave us with 4. Unless we fire with both units, which I'm not planning on doing. And then we'd have 4 left to bring these 4 on. So that I think works out. We won't be doing any more attacks, but we'll get all our armor out onto the board, and we did lose 2, so that's not good, but could have been worse because this guy missed twice. So we'll go to the British here, not British, New Zealanders. We'll take this Sherman, and we're going to send him up this way. 1, 2, this is brush, and brush on the movement is a 2 for tracked. That's 1, 2, 4, 5. 4. We're going to stop here, but hit the leader is, yeah. We're going to stop here. This way we'll have, he'll be able to take advantage of the leader's leadership range. We'll put a moved marker on him. They're down to 4. The Germans will again pass. These 2 are both in buildings, and he's used, so there's really not much else I can do unless I want to use unless I want to reveal these hidden units. But I have them as being up in this area, so I'm not really concerned about that. I think one is going to be either here or here, and the other one will be here or there, something along those lines. So back to the British, they're at 4. And I was going to fire here and I didn't. So let's do that now. So we'll use the one that has the leader, of course. I'm just going to take these off because they can't fire at them anymore this turn. So he'll get a +1 for both well, no, this isn't armor. I mean, it's armor, but it's not armor on the defending side. So it's a 4 firepower. They are in a cemetery, and the cemetery gives them, it is a +1. So it's a +1. So their defense is a 5. So that makes it a 6. Their firepower is a 4. So they're in the -2, but they will get a +1 DRM. Or -2, rather. So it's -2 with a +1. And they rolled a 9, which becomes a 10. And a 10 in -1 is casualty shaken. So they will take a casualty. And we'll have to check for the leader here, which we'll do in a moment after we do our gut check roll. And the 6 with the leader bonus, because I believe they get the leader bonus. No, it's only for rallying. So they're also shaken. Now, because our squad there took casualties, we have to check the leader. We have to roll a 1d6. And we rolled a 2. A 1 would have meant that he would have been a casualty. So he's okay. They are shaken. And these guys, well, one of them is used. I'm going to mark them both used because they're not going to do anything else anyway. So it's not a big deal. They're down to 3. The Germans will again pass. So we're going to continue to move our units on. We'll move another Stuart on. And we're going to take advantage of its extra range by going 1, 2. Now, so you can see how bogging down works, we're going to move up in here. And because of the special rule for this scenario, muddy ground, farms cost 2 movement points for foot units, 3 for tracked vehicles, and 4 for wheeled vehicles. Well, we don't have any wheeled vehicles, but we do have tracked vehicles. So these guys moving into here costs them 3. So they have 1, 2, 5, and that's as far as they can move. But we need to do a bog check roll here. So we roll a 1d6 when entering this terrain, and we bog on a roll of 1. So we will take this and roll it, and we get a 4. So they do not bog. But they do get marked as moved. All right. They're down to 2. The Germans will pass again, and we have 2 left. So we're going to move another Sherman in, and we'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have a Shrek, right? Which is a range of 3. 1, 2, 3. They'll stop right there. And then the Germans are done. We'll move this guy in, and we'll send him up the right side, I guess. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we'll mark him as moved as well. And that is the end of the turn. So they're at 0. So the British took 4. Oh, I forgot to check for the crew there. So let me do that real quick. We had to check for crew survival. So let's roll. I think it's 1 die. Roll it. And we got a 3, which I think means they're dead. Yes, they needed a 6 to survive. So that is 2 casualty points. So they are at 4. And that ends the turn. So what I'm going to do now is wrap the video. We'll come back. We'll do the rest of it in AAR format, which basically means I'll play the turns mostly off camera. And we'll just do like a quick recap at the end of each turn so you can see the progress as we move along. And then at the end, perhaps I'll do the last turn, or if things are kind of obvious what's going to happen, we'll just end on a... So it's going to be a shorter recap, basically. But you did get to see armor in action here. And like I said, if something interesting comes up, I may show you that as well, depending on the situation as we go along. But for now, that's going to wrap up this video. So thank you for watching. Please comment, ask questions, etc. if you would like. Also consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. That is always greatly appreciated. It really is. I'm not just saying that. But yeah, that will do it for this one. So until next time, I'm Joe. This is the Hexed Encounter channel. And as always, happy gaming.